Come on, stupid Instagram. It's not popping up. Anyway, we're live now, you guys. Here we go. And we're going to be going back in time, traveling back in time for WrestleMania 17, Mike's favorite WrestleMania. Mike, what makes this WrestleMania so great to you? Why was this your favorite? Why did you pick this WrestleMania?
I would say the rewatchability on top of all of the twists and turns that you didn't expect and all of the spots that just captivated not only the audience, but it also captivated our minds to where multiple people have actually said that this is their favorite WrestleMania, and you could watch any other WrestleMania and it's not going to come close to this one right here because this one was literally the end of the Attitude Era, rolling into the Ruthless Aggression Era. WCW just got bought out. ECW just got bought out. The stories behind everything as well, with Paul Heyman and Tommy Dreamer. Now that I've been able to like rewatch it and then hear some interviews and stuff, and it's crazy when you look at all of the things around this event and what happened with it. It's just absolutely insane, and there's a ton of stories that is just leading up to this. I don't know. Did you ever hear like the Tommy Dreamer Paul Heyman story right there? Like Paul Heyman should be dead.
Oh, what the fuck? No, I did not hear about
You
that.
you never heard that one? Okay, well Tommy Dreamer actually said a story or told a story about this, about how he got screwed out of thousands and thousands of dollars. I'm talking like probably six figures, 75,000, $100,000, or I don't know. I'm playing telephone with the number, but it was a pretty
Mm-hmm.
high number. And
Mm-hmm.
WCW had reached out to him, and Paul Heyman um, begged and cried and pleaded for Tommy Dreamer to stay in ECW because he wanted to put everything on Tommy Dreamer's back and say, this is your company. We're going to go in the direction you want to go. There's nothing stopping us from doing what it is that you want to do. And
Yeah,
then,
shout out to Kung Fu Eddie on the comments said Dreamer came out with a piece. LOL.
yeah, and he actually stayed. He threw away that WCW offer that was given to him, and he would have been set, or at least like he would have had some money that was able to recoup from all of the times that he did bail Paul Heyman out when ECW was failing because Paul didn't pay anybody. That's why a lot of people were jumping ship to WCW, and all the ECW diehards sometimes overlook that right there. Like, oh, why would they leave WCW? What a sellout. Well, if you have checks bouncing more than a basketball that was
Yeah.
promised to you, you're going to jump to another company. And so Tommy Dreamer didn't do that. And then the
Mm.
next week, after him and Heyman have this conversation, he's watching an episode of Raw, and Paul Heyman's commentating the damn thing with
Yeah,
Jim
yeah.
Ross. And so it turned, and the invasion angle happened. And once the invasion angle happened, and you see, and you find out like Dreamer isn't even there. So you have Dreamer sitting here feeling stupid, feeling screwed over because he got screwed over bad on this one. And he's
Hmm.
contemplating if he's going to go to the Astrodome and he's going to, just get by, request his front row tickets because he was well respected by a lot of people in other organizations. So he could have easily just got front row tickets there, and he was just going to pull one out and just blast Paul Heyman on camera right there live, and did
Hmm.
not care. But the one thing that stopped him from doing that is a call from Jim Ross saying,
Hmm.
"Hey, stick around. We're going to need you.
Hmm.
Just be patient. We're going to call you. We're going to get something going with you." All right. Because he did that, Tommy Dreamer didn't show up to take out Paul Heyman.
God damn. I did hear like parts and pieces of that story. Yeah, that Paul Heyman pretty much claims that he did that to kind of make some money or pay some of the money back that he owed or something like that. Or maybe I don't know. I've heard many different things, but um that's one of reasons why I was excited to go over WrestleMania, because I knew, I was like, if Mike is going to have some information about this, I mean, if someone is going to have some information about this WrestleMania 17 that we're going to go over, it's Mike. Um, and like you said, this was a crazy time in the WWF. Still, this was like right before it turned. They dropped the F before they got the F out. This WrestleMania actually took place right after Shane McMahon showed up on WCW Nitro and made the big announcement that the McMahons have bought WCW, but the contract says Shane McMahon, right?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And then Invasion happened. And then once Invasion happened, then I believe I may be out of sorts. It could be Invasion and then WrestleMania 17. And then it went over to, them feuding a little bit more. And then they hit Survivor Series. And then that's when the brands like completely went kablooey and it became the Ruthless Aggression era going into that segue.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. So then let's get into it, Mike. Let's get into these matches. I'm ready if you are. You ready to get into these matches?
No, absolutely.
All right, let's get it then.
All of his stuff looked good, so probably too good because it was probably snug, but he was different in everything that he did. He locked up different. He locked up snug.
Hey, this is your Olympic hero, Kurt Angle, and you're listening to Snug Wrestling. Oh, it's true. It's damn true.
What's up, everyone? Welcome back again to Snug Wrestling. I am back. It's been a while. Feels like it's been forever. I was in Mexico taking care of some personal stuff, some family business. I'm back now. I just want to give a quick special thanks to everyone that sent out nice messages while I was gone, some encouraging words, and I appreciate everyone. You, including Mike. Mike, also you reached out to me too while I was out there, so thank you, and thank you for coming back on the show, Mike. Who Let's get started with like this. When it comes to WrestleMania 17, Mike, when you hear about the commissioner, who is the first person you think of when you hear that term, the commissioner?
Well, the commissioner at the time, it was Shawn Michaels going into another part because Shawn Michaels was always the commissioner when you thought about the Attitude Era.
Mm.
And then Shawn left to go find himself, to go get back in touch with his Lord and everything. So when I hear commissioner now, I mean, it was basically Vince McMahon.
Mm. So the name that always popped up to my head when I heard that term, the commissioner, was Mick Foley for some reason. But this time around WrestleMania 17, and correct me if I'm wrong, I believe the commissioner was William Regal. Was he not?
Yeah, William Regal. He
William
was the
Regal.
commissioner.
Yeah. William Regal was a commissioner, and he also booked himself. Well, he didn't book himself. He was the opening match of this WrestleMania 17 versus a very likable babyface Y2J, who was an Intercontinental Champion at the time. How did you feel about William Regal at the time? Were you a fan of his, or did you think he was just like fucking annoying like I did?
Oh man, I loved watching William Regal. I loved watching it, but as a kid, of course you're gonna boo the guy. You don't want him to win anything. Like the build up to this match was actually really cool because you have you have Jericho just giving him a hard time. He just won the IC title. I think he just broke off from China as well because it was the China Jericho show for a little bit. Even though they had the bad chemistry, they were still splitting that title. And then Jericho finally got the title and then went over to SmackDown. And I think, and I already know this was way before the draft, and they split everybody up because that was the next step after this WrestleMania. But then you have Regal just booking him in shit matches and putting him through shit because he disrespected Regal. And then I believe the most memorable part of it was like when Jericho pissed in his tea.
Oh, that was that during that time. Okay,
Yeah,
I
and that
remember that.
was that was around the time, and I think Tajiri was his assistant as well.
Okay. Yes, yes, yes. It's starting to come back to me now. Yeah. This build was actually really good, man. And it was kind of one of those like typical classic feuds. Like they're complete opposites. William Regal and Chris Jericho. Chris Jericho at the time, he had that rock star look. The people loved him. He had the long blonde hair, and like William Regal is just the complete opposite. Just like he was like the Bob Backlund of like that time, just super, just old school, really classic wrestler style, just everything that the Attitude Era was not about, basically. So every
Oh
time I
yeah,
saw William Regal, I was just like, oh, I fucking hate this guy, man.
yeah. There was he is that old school heel right there. You just
Yeah.
did not agree with anything he did. And then when you get older, you start watching back on some of his stuff. It's like absolutely genius. The dude barely made any botches as it is. Didn't he didn't break character. He managed to stay entertaining as well. If you paid attention to his promos and you paid attention to some of his his demeanor and the way he carried himself, especially in his matches, just absolute technical guy. And then you have Jericho. Yeah, he's rock star, Ayatollah, rock and rolla, lion salt, lion tamer. This was before undisputed champion Jericho, which personally, that's one of my favorite Jerichos right there.
Yeah.
Intercontinental title, Jericho was just the man who could, good crowd work,
Yeah.
could absolutely make things happen in the ring. And then you had these two together in one match, especially at a WrestleMania match, the opener, really technical match, a lot of great spots right there.
Yeah.
And you could tell that this Regal was here to put on a show, and he did. I would say Regal was like the star of that match right there.
Yeah, man, brought back a lot of great memories seeing Chris Jericho come out with his classic entrance, with the big pyro, carrying the Intercontinental Championship belt. And then the match, man, these two got into it. And kind of like you said, when you get older, you kind of rewatch these matches and you realize how great William Regal actually was. But growing up, man, William Regal had a lot of heat as a commissioner trying to screw Chris Jericho. And they had one hell of a match. The other thing too that I was really surprised by this was the way that Chris Jericho won this match was with his line salt, which is the moonsault that he does from the ropes. Bounces from the ropes, does a backflip. That was the finish of the match. It wasn't even anything crazy. It wasn't anything like out of this world, but it still got a big reaction. Chris Jericho retained the Intercontinental Championship. Did you think this was a good way to start this WrestleMania to kind of set the tone for the show, or how did you feel about the match?
If I had to take any other opening match from a WrestleMania, it would probably be WrestleMania 10 as that, Rushmore of good opening matches. I would put, because number one WrestleMania opening match will always be WrestleMania 10 when it was Bret Hart against Owen Hart. I would probably put this on that same pedestal because there was rarely any mistakes right there. And then you had a good build up on top of it. And then you had some good spots on top of it. And then the finish was unexpected because you didn't expect Jericho to win with the lion salt the same way that you didn't expect Owen to win in WrestleMania 10 with the sharpshooter.
Mm-hmm. Nah. Well, yeah. So we had a great build for this opening match. We had a great storyline. We had a lovable baby face, a hated heel like William Regal. We're off to a great start from this WrestleMania 17. Chris Jericho retained, like we mentioned before. Anything else that you want to add or that we missed about this opening match before we move on?
Oh no, that was a great match. The next match was, like I said, this card was fully stacked. Looking back on it, we didn't realize what we had until it was gone, and we're watching this and we're like, wow, such a great card.
Oh yeah, for sure. This next match was also a really great match. It kept that momentum going. Like they followed up this opening match really really well. The second match of WrestleMania 17. It was snug, no pun intended. It was high paced. It was hard hitting. It was exciting, and it didn't drag out super long. It was short, sweet. It got the job done. Mike, who is your favorite RTC member, right to censor member?
My favorite right to censor member was Stevie Richards.
Why Steven Richards out of all of them?
The man could cut a promo like no tomorrow. If anybody watched his ECW days, he didn't do much. But once he started getting a little bit more momentum, though, once he started the Blue World Order with everybody, then you started to see him come out of his shell. WCW didn't really do him any justice, and also, yeah, injuries and everything. But once he came back after the whole merger with WCW and
Mhm.
WWE, you started to see his promo skills. You started to see he has really great wrestling ability on top of that. And you got to see a little bit of that in Right to Censor, and you got to see some good heel work out of it too, as if he was still in Raven's flock, just more clothing.
Yeah, and we were about to get a promo from Steven Richards, but he got interrupted very, very quickly by Taz. And man, I remember when I was first introduced to Taz was I heard his song, and this was when he wrestled Kurt Angle as as a surprise opponent. I forgot which pay per view it was, but he showed up.
It was Royal Rumble 2000. That's when he made his debut against Kurt Angle, and believe it or not, that match screwed up his push.
Why? Oh, really? All right.
Because
Why?
did you notice that botched suplex where he like threw Kurt a little bit too hard and
Oh,
Kurt
I
went
don't
flying
remember
off?
off the top of my head. No, but he
Okay,
fucked it up
so
or what?
well he threw him and Kurt landed on his head in the process.
Oh, okay, okay.
Now Kurt is fresh. They're trying to keep this undefeated streak going, and so once because Taz was going to probably get maybe a mid card title or maybe feud for the title, he wasn't going to get the title, but he was going to have a high profile match down the road. But when he messed up right there, Kurt was okay with it. Like he didn't wasn't mad at all, and they did the finish the way that it was. Like he did the Taz mission, and then Kurt said, "Oh, it's an illegal choke." No,
Mm.
that's not happening. But once Taz got back there, Vince was pissed beyond belief. Vince
Well,
was so pissed. So that's why when you watch this match now, you see that the only thing Taz was good enough for was a six man against Right to Censor with the Acolytes.
oh shit, we got some comments here. Oh, one of my cousins in Spanish. Saludos. Saludos, Hera. Thanks, cuz. And the Holy Shit Podcast. Jericho is my top 5. Shout out to you guys. Thank you guys for the comments. I'm probably gonna get a lot of heat for this, but that was the first time I ever was introduced to Taz. And as I got older, I learned more about Taz and his ECW career. But I thought his presentation with Kurt Angle was so dope. He
Oh
came
yeah.
out, the commentators put him over like a big deal. He
Oh yeah.
looked like a fucking badass dude. And me being new to Taz, I was like glued to the TV. I was like, holy shit, this guy's fucking cool. So when I heard his music interrupt Steven Richards in the second match at WrestleMania 17, I was fucking hyped, dude. And then to add the little cherry on top, Taz was teaming with none other than the APA, the Acolytes, Bradshaw and Farouk, two other badass motherfuckers. So you have Taz and the APA going up against the RTC. Uh, and Steven Richards was not part of this match, if I'm not mistaken. But we did have, help me here, the Godfather was one. And who were the other two? I wrote it down, but I can't remember.
Well, you had the Good Father, you had Bull Buchanan
Ah,
as
yes.
well, and Stevie Richards was the third person because it was the
Oh, okay.
entire I mean, unless you want to count Val Venus, but I don't think Val Venus was in yet.
I
But
want to
he
say
could have
Val
been.
Venus was the third one, and Steven Richards was just like ringside, kind of
That's
managing,
right.
trying to
That's
get
right.
involved.
Yeah, that's right. It was those three right there. So you had Val Venus. I forgot what they were calling him before, like, but you had the Good Father, and then you had Bull Buchanan.
Didn't you meet him recently? Or
Who?
Buchanan?
No, I met Rob
Oh,
Terry. It was Rob
oh,
Terry I
okay.
met.
Okay, well, yeah, so we had a 6-man tag match, and it was one hell of a 6-man tag match, man. We had 6 badass dudes in the ring, and man, this was a fight, dude. I didn't really understand why RTC was feuding with Taz and the APA, but it didn't matter, man, because you can tell these 6 guys wanted to rip each other apart. They were pissed off at each other, and they gave us one hell of a match. Mike, what do you remember about the build-up or anything that you can
The,
tell us about this match?
well, the buildup was you had the APA competing for the tag team titles, and they were going up against Edge and Christian. Edge and Christian at the time were the tag team champions, and then Right to Censor came in as a distraction, cost them the titles, and that's what led up to that right there. And then you had your back and forths every single week where they're outnumbered, and then APA will get one over, acolytes will get one over them because they weren't the APA yet. They weren't being paid money yet to
Mm,
protect people. So at this time, they were just the acolytes when they still had the weird symbols painted on their chests, like they were still part of Undertaker's ministry.
mm.
So that's what led up to that. And Taz, they just needed a third person, and then Taz happened to be the surprise tag team partner for the 6-man. And I believe it was I think it was a street fight rules match, anyways. So there was
Mm.
a lot of good table spots, and then the one thing I remember out of that whole entire thing was that clothesline that the Good Father took, because Bradshaw's clothesline is one of the most immaculate things I ever seen since Stan Henson's lariat from Japan. Like
I
if
think
you,
I think even Jim Ross made that comparison during that match too.
yeah, Stan Henson has probably the greatest lariat, as they call it, lariat clothesline. And for the viewers that have never heard of Stan Henson or never even seen a match, just heard the name, go look him up. YouTube is free. You can look him up. There's a lot of matches between him, Big Van Vader, Bruiser Brody. Those are some great matches right there. And you can see how incredibly tough this type of person was. And you have somebody like Bradshaw coming in and trying to fill those shoes right there. And I say he did a pretty damn good job with that clothesline right there, because that was probably one of the most immaculate ones right there. And it's safer than people think. However, if you don't fall in time, you're going to get seriously injured.
I mean, they didn't call it the clothesline from hell for nothing.
Exactly. So you got them. They got the 1, 2, 3 after that
Mhm.
clothesline right there. It was a quick match, like you said. It was just zip, zip, in and out. And then later on, you had another RTC member that was going to be in another title match. And we'll get to that a little bit because I'm pretty sure there was something else after that, right?
Absolutely right. We had a few backstage segments throughout this entire WrestleMania, which I thought was kind of odd at first, like seeing like it kind of gave it like a typical like Monday Night Raw kind of Friday Night
Mm-hmm.
SmackDown type feel with all the backstage segments, but they were entertaining backstage segments. And do you think that Linda McMahon fully recovered from being sedated those that during that time, or do you think it's gonna affect her like being head of the Department of Education nowadays still?
Honestly, if I have to look at it from that route right there, I'm not really too political when it comes to things. I just make fun of it.
Yeah,
Um, if I have to say anything, we'll see. That's
yeah.
all I got. That's
No,
that's
I was just
really
kidding.
like when somebody asks me about anything political, I straight out just give them 2 words, and they don't like these 2 words, but they can't really argue with it. It's we'll see,
Yeah, for sure.
and they go
This
see.
was
Yeah, sorry.
Yeah,
Go ahead.
this was during the time where Vince McMahon was dating Trish Stratus,
Oh yeah.
and Stephanie McMahon was backing up her dad, and they're making Linda McMahon's life miserable. Of course, this all has to do with the feud with Shane McMahon, which we will get into more in a little bit. But up next for the third match for this WrestleMania 17, Mike, who was your favorite hardcore champion of all time?
Man, that's a tough one because there were some good ones. Maybe my favorite will probably be a tie between the Big Boss Man
Oh,
and Crash Holly. But Crash Holly didn't
oh
do
yeah.
all that nonsense, or not, I wouldn't say nonsense, all that funny stuff like R-Truth was doing with the 24/7 title later on in the future. Crash was the innovator of that. But this was before Crash was doing that. This was, straight up. I think it was this they were just about to start up the 24-hour rule. But my favorite hardcore champion will probably have to be, at the moment, we're staying at WrestleMania 17 timeline. So my favorite at the moment would have been the Big Boss Man.
Mm.
But this match had nothing to do with those. It was Kane and Big Show and Raven.
Raven was a current hardcore champion for this match, and yeah, the hardcore title was defended at WrestleMania 17 also in the third match. And in my opinion, we went from having two great opening matches to this hardcore match where it was a triple threat match. You had Raven and you had the Big Show and Kane, and they were fighting all over the arena in the crowd, and how Jim Ross put it, in the bowels of the arena. And when you have these types of matches, you run the risk of a lot of things going bad, because I feel like there was like a few things that were supposed to happen that didn't. Like Big Show was trying to like lock some type of cage at some point. I think Kane was supposed to rip it off. Big Show didn't put the lock properly, so Kane just kind of just walked in the door. Um, they had this thing with the golf carts. It was just like it just felt like a mess. This match kind of felt like everything that could have went wrong did. But what did you see from this match, Mike? And how did you feel about it?
When I was a kid watching this, I loved matches that would go all the way backstage, and they would go into the concession stands, and they would go into like certain parts of the arena. And when you got older and you watch this and you're like, it's still exciting. There's still a lot of great spots in this match that outweigh the things that go wrong. And these are those types of matches where you got to have people relying on each other to think quick on their feet in case something doesn't go to plan. And not everything's going to go 100% planned. And these matches are a perfect example of wrestling in general. Not everything will go to plan as much as you want it to. Everything looks great on paper. Like, oh, the cage is supposed to get locked. Kane's going to rip it off. We're going to build him up as a bigger monster than he is right now.
Mhm.
Or, all right, Big Show, you're going to pretend to hit Raven. Oh, and you're not going to go off the track as you're trying to hit Raven. Oh, you went too fast. You went off track, and you might have slightly injured Raven as well. Okay, but the two spots out of this whole thing, you had Raven going through the window, which was insane. You've never seen stuff like that. I mean, I think the one that came close to it later on that year was Kurt Angle versus Shane McMahon at King of the Ring 2001. That was like the next big thing that came after that, but this was the precursor to that. So you watch Raven going through the window, and then you have Show and Kane fighting with each other, and they're going through a wall. You as a kid, you're like, whoa, this is so freaking cool.
Mhm.
I've never seen any shit like this before. I mean, maybe me personally, I was a big ECW fan as a kid. I had bad parents, so of course I got to watch ECW as a kid. Would I let my kid watch ECW? If I'm in the
Yes.
room, if I'm in the room with them and I know what parts are coming up, I'm not going to let
Yeah.
them listen to Bubba Ray's ECW, Heat Wave promo from 1999. I'm not going to let my kid hear that. But am I going to watch them put Spike through a flaming table? Absolutely. And I want to tell them, hey, don't do that. And there you go. Perfect. But as we're watching this hardcore match, you just see the great spots outweigh the things that went wrong 100%. And then you have them finally finishing the match on the stage. And you got Show, and you got Raven. First of all, Raven showed up with the shopping cart. All right, that's when you know business is about to pick up when it comes to these matches right here. Especially for us who watched New Jack back in the day. He showed up with that shopping cart. He has all sorts of goodies in there. Raven was the same way. But you have Show, you have Raven. Raven's about to go through one of the breakable platforms on the stage. Kane hits him with the big boot. They both go falling. Kane drops that elbow from the top of the stage. And then you have the ref doing one of the most unconventional 3 counts ever. He's counting the side of some plexiglass. That was cool right there, too, with hardcore matches. It was falls count anywhere.
Yeah.
So anybody who says that this was not an exciting match, they need to go back and watch some more wrestling. Like, seriously, go watch some more and stop scrolling. All that shit right there. Go watch some wrestling. This was one of them, especially now. We're about to lose Peacock and the accessibility to that. I don't know what Netflix is going to offer, and I don't know how much they're going to change over WrestleMania 17. Now they could do more editing. Because I believe the next match after this was absolutely incredible. And I'm sure that's going to probably fall victim to some edits because you have Kane getting the 1-2-3 at the end of this match, and he
Yeah.
becomes a new hardcore title or a hardcore champion.
Yeah, Kane won this match. So you think they'll edit that part out or something?
No, I'm talking about the next match on the card. If
Oh,
I'm
the one
correct,
after this.
I believe
I believe. Well, do you want to get into the next match? Are we done with this hardcore match?
well, yeah, I mean, it's a hardcore match. There really isn't much else to talk about right there.
Okay. The next match was Dirty Dom's real father. And it's 2 wrestlers that are no longer with us, unfortunately, left us too soon. And it's rewatching this match. It was just so crazy to me, like the resemblance between Dom and Eddie. Like Dominic Mysterio really studied Eddie Guerrero, not just his look, but his way of wrestling. Like I couldn't help but notice all the similar things that Dom does nowadays. Rewatching this match, and I'm talking about Eddie Guerrero versus Test, and this was for the European Championship. Eddie at the time was being accompanied by Perry Saturn, and I believe Eddie was the current. No. Test was a current European champion during this match, right?
Yeah. So this is around the time like the Radicals had just came around, and I believe Dean Malenko and Benoit had splintered off a little bit from them because at the time when Eddie showed up, Eddie was accompanied with Perry Saturn, Dean Malenko, and Chris Benoit, and they had just left WCW. And the funny part is this right here, you see Eddie and you see him wrestle. Eddie had just recovered from a ruptured bicep at the time as well, because during the second night that they were wrestling on a SmackDown, goes for a frog splash, he lands on his forearm, funny, tears a bicep.
On
It's
his
fine.
debut, right?
On his debut.
Mm-hmm.
But when you watch this match and you go, wow, I could see why WCW sank the way it did by letting these 4 go. And Eddie is a perfect example of that. And you got to see that in this match against Test. Him and Test have some great chemistry. As a matter of fact, Eddie had great chemistry with anybody he wrestled with. He was
It
just
was a
like,
dope ass match. It was a great match.
it
Yeah.
was a great match. He had some run-ins, a little bit of interference from, part of the Radicals. And then you have Eddie just smacking him with that title. Just smacks him while the ref is distracted by Perry Saturn. Just smacks him.
Dean Malenko was the one that was out there too.
Yeah. You
Yeah.
got you got Dean. I think Dean's the one that took the hit. It took the hit from Test. Refs telling them both, back up, get off, and then here comes Eddie with the belt. Boom, hits him in the head with the belt. And then Eddie showing off his lying, cheating, and stealing moniker before it even starts.
That's right.
Taking that 1, 2, 3 and becoming the new
Mhm.
European champion.
Yep, Eddie Guerrero, the new European champion at this WrestleMania 17 by lie, cheating, and stealing, man. It's such good stuff, man. Eddie Guerrero was my favorite, probably. When it comes to European champion, I want to say, whenever I think about that belt, the first person that comes to mind is Eddie Guerrero. But who was yours? Like, when you think about that old championship belt, who do you usually think of?
D'Lo Brown.
Oh, that's another one, yeah. That's a
Yeah,
good one.
D'Lo was such a great European champion. However, I think this was a little bit after that little accident he had on a SmackDown taping with Draws, where he slipped and he tried to do a sit down power bomb. He slipped, um, put Draws on his neck, made him a paraplegic,
Mhm.
and it was a freak accident. So I mean, it just sucks right there when spots like that happen. That's why, like, when you used to watch those "Don't try these at home," they would put those like on in between matches sometimes, or
Yeah.
in between like whatever, like they're advertising like Stride X or 1-800-Collect at the time. Don't try this at home. You see the first dude in a stretcher, that's Draws, and
Yeah.
then you got to watch D'Lo's push just get taken away because that's politicking right there. And
Yeah.
so
It
when
was
you
it was unfortunate. It was unfortunate. So you mentioned earlier that you think that this match would probably get edited out. Is it
no,
because of
no, there's
Test?
I'm sorry, I got them mixed up a little bit.
Oh,
The
okay.
Benoit match. That's the one I'm
Oh,
talking
okay.
about.
Oh, yeah. Good point. Good point.
Yeah.
I was like, whoa, are they going to edit out Test because he used to date Stephanie, or what's the deal with that? No.
No, that was all storyline right there, man. And
Oh, it wasn't for real. They never dated for real. It was just in
no,
the TV show. Oh, okay. Okay. Okay.
no, it was around this time because if you never get the chance to watch, like, if you want to watch anything about like who Stephanie was like with or something like that, China's interviews are perfect for that. Because
Hmm.
remember when um when Paul came into the business, he had just met China at Killer Kowalski's school, and then him and Joni were dating at the time.
Hmm.
And once Tripp started getting a push to where he was going from Hunter to Triple H, that's when him and Stephanie got acquainted. And then this was around the time a little bit before like Test was feuding with the McMahons or with Shane, and then with Triple H over like wasn't over Stephanie, but it was more on the lines of like protecting Stephanie. This at the time was when Triple H was having an affair with her
Hmm.
behind China's back. But they were also storylining it to where Stephanie was with Test. The Attitude Era is
Hmm.
wild with these stories, but
Yeah,
um,
which we'll get into more
yeah.
for
So at the
sure.
time, yeah, I have a ton of like wrestling research and knowledge and stuff. I'm not a smart mark. I don't go to wrestling shows and like tell people what's going to happen. And I'm not that kind of like fan. I hate when people do that. It turns you into a
Yeah.
cynic, and you just go to have fun. You go to enjoy this.
Yeah.
Um, Now Test though, he had a lot of problems. Like I heard watched some good stuff. Like there's this channel I watch, WrestleMania. They had a series called Behind the Titantron, or like the Final Bell, and they did one on Andrew Martin, who was Test, and that's quite an interesting story right there. And he really
He had
did.
like a lot of drug problems, right? Like drug issues.
That's what killed his push. His push was like he was supposed to be. He should have been a champion. The dude has such great ability. He had a great ability. He had great charisma. He was a big dude. And remember, Vince McMahon loved big, sweaty men. That was the old rhyme that we said back then. Vince McMahon loves big, sweaty men. And Test was in that category right there. He had the it factor. It's just he couldn't handle the shit.
Mm-hmm. I caught up to him. Unfortunately, he passed away shortly after that. I want to say,
2007 or 8, around there. That's when he passed
yeah,
away. Because WWE,
fucking,
ECW just came out and he made his return, had a great finisher, but you could tell something was wrong with him when you watch back his matches. And it really saddens me that I watched this when I rewatched WrestleMania, like how many people on this card are not alive anymore.
yeah, it's sad, man. This match had Eddie Guerrero and Tess, two very young, talented guys that passed away shortly after this match. But so it was cool to go back and rewatch this match and see, how great Eddie was, and also the comparison with Dominic Mysterio of all people, and it was just really fun to see.
Oh yeah.
Um, but yeah, Eddie Guerrero, with the help of Dean Malenko and Perry Saturn, he beat the much bigger Test and won the European Championship. The next match after this was a match that you were talking about, Mike. But what did the three eyes stand for, Mike? Do you remember?
You had integrity, intelligence, and oh my goodness, it was integrity, intelligence, and
I want to say intensity, but I could be wrong.
that's it. That's it. Intensity.
Okay. Well,
Yes.
the creator of the three eyes was after this match, Kurt Angle, a good friend of the show, Snug Wrestling. He faced Chris Benoit. Or
Yeah.
I should say he faced the Invisible Man. No, I'm
He
just kidding.
he faced Chris Benoit. I'm not gonna I won't go too far into like him and 2007 and everything, but around this time you didn't know.
Yeah.
Then we're going over it as if we were there present and nothing else happened 6 years later.
Yeah. Um and the build up to this was pretty interesting because Chris Benoit being the technical wrestler, or like the ability that he had in the ring. The story goes that Chris Benoit unofficially made Kurt Angle tap out, which Kurt Angle, being the Olympic gold medalist that he is, he doesn't tap out to anyone because he's Kurt Angle. He's a legit amateur wrestler who can take anyone down. But Chris Benoit made him tap. But that was pretty much the buildup of this match. Kurt Angle was obsessing over the fact that Chris Benoit didn't really make him tap because it wasn't during a match, so it shouldn't count. A lot of people were saying the opposite, so it was driving Kurt Angle crazy. And these two men were making their lives pretty much miserable. So we're off to the races for WrestleMania 17. What were your thoughts on the build-up, Mike, and the match itself between Kurt Angle and Chris Benoit at this WrestleMania?
The build-up was perfect. I mean, you have Benoit winning a match, and then here comes Angle out of nowhere. Angle slam. And this was at the time like he was just throwing in the moonsault and really wasn't like putting a lot of like he wasn't putting a lot of emphasis in the ankle lock anymore. He was more on the lines of like we do moonsaults and we do Olympic slams. We come out to the Patriots music. There's no you suck yet. He hadn't feuded with Edge. So it's kind of weird when you hear Angle coming out to the ring and you don't hear the you sucks
Yeah.
during this time because this was way before that.
I think like during the match a little bit, the crowd started like chanting it a little bit, but it wasn't during the song. It was
They
during the
piped.
match.
Well, yeah. If you hear "You Suck" now and they're doing it, they piped in the crowd, and that's the other reason why. If you have the opportunity to buy it physically, go buy it physically because the more the more that these digital things like start happening, get implemented and everything, the more that they're going to pipe in crowd noise. They're going to start changing things. That's why, like WrestleMania 17, if it comes out and they put it on Netflix, make it accessible, I wouldn't be surprised if this match just gets fully edited out.
That's true. That's a good point.
And
Yeah.
that sucks. It's unfortunate because this match was amazing. It was so technical, and the way the
Yeah.
German suplexes were done, you have both of them just hitting each other with German suplexes. You got the flying headbutt, you got the crossface, and this wasn't even their 2 out of 3 falls match. That is an excellent match right there too from Royal Rumble 2003. They had a
Hmm.
great match then. These two just had unbelievable chemistry, and this is the closest we were going to get to Bret Hart versus Kurt Angle, because that is on the top of a lot of people's fantasy booking lists. Like, if you could book anybody against anybody, who would it be? I'd book a prime Bret Hart against a prime Kurt Angle, because
There you go.
that buildup would be perfect. Because I really wasn't digging the whole Patriot versus Bret Hart, and that's the closest people got to Kurt Angle against Bret Hart. Dill Wilkes against Bret Hart, and it's like, okay, cool, because in essence, you got Kurt Angle using that music.
Yeah. No, this was definitely a wrestling match. Like two masters of the the in-ring technician fucking style of wrestling. And Kurt Angle actually got the win here by who would have guessed cheating. Kurt Angle being the heel, got the roll up on Chris Benoit by grabbing the tights and got the 1, 2, 3. But Chris Benoit got the final laugh because after the match, Chris Benoit caught Kurt Angle backstage during an interview, got him in the crippler crossface once again, and made him tap backstage in the interview. So the story continued after this, I believe, with Chris Benoit and Kurt Angle.
So far, like, how are you liking this card? The more that
It's
we're breaking it down and we're going through it and we're seeing how everything unfolded, and they were just giving us these matches like nothing, where we have to wait like 3 to 4 months these days to even see a match of this magnitude. Like, all of these matches would be considered legendary matches.
Yeah, it's been amazing to me so far. I was loving it.
Because if I'm correct, it's either the gimmick battle royal or the women's title match that's coming up. If I'm correct.
Is definitely not the gimmick battle royal just yet. It was the women's match between Right to Censor's Ivory, who's a current women's champion, versus none other than the ninth wonder of the world, China, for the women's championship. That was the next match, and let's see what else have I had in here. I'm gonna have to edit this out because I drew a blank. Um, with another great build between these two, Ivory actually tried to break China's neck with a pile driver, and it was another intense build up. Um, Mike, what do you remember most about this match between these two women?
It was quick. That's all I
Hmm.
have to say about that. China whooped her ass up and down that ring, just military press slam. I believe that she had didn't she just debut a new finisher? She wasn't doing the pedigree anymore.
I don't remember too much about this. Just rewatching it, like the things that stood out to me was she looked a lot like slimmer. It looked like she slimmed down a lot during this time.
Well,
She wasn't like
she got plastic surgery. So if you notice, like, she got written off after Jericho and her split up.
mm,
And she came back, and you saw her face was a little more feminine and everything. She got plastic surgery because, let's be real, China back then, she was huge, big old buff lady, but she had the face going on where it's just like she looked like a man to some guys.
hmm
And she probably, and I can already tell that had Vince's work written all over it. Just Vince saying,
mm.
"You want to be more popular with the women? you need to go get plastic surgery or something like that. I don't know. I'm not Vince. I wasn't there. So she came back and they probably promised her a title shot. She got it, took out Ivory, of course, with the buildup of nearly breaking her neck. She did have neck problems at the time, so they did gimmick that as well. And she took the 1, 2, 3. I think it was just that military press drop right there because she was just manhandling Ivory. I called her Lunch Lady Ivory when I was a kid.
What up, Monty Ice? Shout out to Monty. It was a quick match for sure. China was all over poor little Ivory, man. It looked like at first she was gonna get the win a lot sooner, but China broke her own count to continue the attack on Ivory, and China became the new women's champion. 1, 2, 3.
Yeah, that right there, you watch that, and I gotta tell you, when I was a kid, I would watch this with family, and WrestleMania was a time that it was, how do I put it? We're watching wrestling around in the family, and this was like, I believe I remember this the most because at the time, like my dad and his dad wasn't getting along very well and stuff, but when WrestleMania would come on, like that, whatever beef that they had would leave the window or would leave the building for those 3-4 hours. And so we're watching this and we're laughing and we're doing all that. And then it's so crazy that they're both not here anymore. So me watching this alone is kind of surreal in a way where I'm just like, man, I just like a lot of the people who I'm watching on WrestleMania, they're not here anymore either. It makes me, it hits me in the feels a little bit. And if you think about it, and rewatching China stuff, a lot of us didn't understand when we compare her skill to the women now. It's product of its time. Would she have lasted in today's women's wrestling? Maybe, because she would have probably got better training. She would have had better coaches, and it's one of those moments you watch her and you're like, man, I wish you never met X-Pac. You were so amazing to watch. And this match was a perfect example of it. Ninth wonder of the world. I've made a few edits of her and stuff, and I'm just like, if I had to choose who's my favorite women's wrestler of all time, it's China. It'll always be China. I could care less who else shows up. They're all great. I mean, yeah, Mommy, Rhea Ripley, but even she knows that China was the one that really put their foot in the door for everyone else. China walks so everyone else can run. In that magnitude, right there, we have buff women and not these scantily dressed divas doing bra and panties matches and expecting anyone to take you seriously more than a sideshow. And China was trying to push that at the time too.
Right.
So this match was a step in the right direction. Like, you ever asked me about what were the divas like 2005 through 2000 whatever when they had that? I'm like, I really don't give a shit. I could care less.
Right. Well, yeah, that was a match between China and Ivory. Mike, before we go on to the next match, I'm getting that fucking echo again. Do you mind backing out and coming back in, see if that fixed the issue real quick?
No problem.
Hello, hello.
I'm back in. Is that echo still there?
Yeah, it's still there. Hopefully, it doesn't come out in the audio. I'm gonna just turn myself down.
I can hear you crystal clear.
Damn it, man. Let me try it. Mic check. Mic check.
Still echoing?
Yeah, still echoing. I'm gonna refresh it. Hold on.
Okay. Hello, TV land.
Hello?
Hello?
Nah, man.
Let me try it again.
Hello?
Can you hear me?
Hello? Yeah.
Is there an echo?
Yeah, it's still a fucking echo. Ah. One second. Mic check. Mm-mm.
Still there?
Yeah, I can hear you. But I can also hear myself. Why is it doing that? I'm sorry, dude. Give me a second.
Do you have multiple mics on?
No, man.
Is your volume turned up on like something else?
Mm-mm.
Could it
And
be
you're
your
using
audience?
your headphones, right?
Yeah, using my earbuds. So
Like you usually do.
let me try this. I'll put one down. Did that do anything?
Hello?
Hello, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you, but
Still an echo?
yeah. Mic check.
I'm here.
Hello. Yeah, I can hear you.
We can do like 2 parts.
Yeah.
Do it another day so that we can get that stuff situated right there. I'll be by my phone and everything, so you're more than
Yeah.
welcome to hit me up on Messenger or something and just let me know, hey, we're back up. You still up for part 2 or something like that? Because this is an unbelievable episode.
Yeah, it's been great. Let me try to create another one. See if that does anything. So I'm gonna end this one and then I'll send you a new link.
Okay, sounds good.
All right.